Alright, hey Saber fans. Got a nice reveal for you today. It's an Elf Sabers Kylo Ren, otherwise known as a Korbanth Kylo V3. Could also be called an Elf Kylo. I don't know, there's a lot of different names floating around. It gets a little confusing. Regardless, this one is installed with proffie. It's also installed with the kit from Korbanth that they offer with the nylon chassis. And it also has side blades from the Proplicator over on Etsy. And that's pretty close to what they look like in real life. But turn off this LED light. And actually, now it looks really good. Still looks a little more bright red in person. It's kind of hard to get the correct lighting on camera. Got my little short demo blade in here to help. So it's got all the usual stuff, you know, you got your clashes, got your color changing on the fly. This is Unstable V2 from Kyberphonic. And I love his and K-Sith's, they're both on here, because they include multiple hums to essentially give you multiple fonts in one.
I'll show you the dark side.
So these first three fonts are from Kyberphonic, and the next three are from K-Sith. And they're all just a little bit different.
What could you give me? Everything.
You got music tracks too. Oh, I love that staggered ignition.
Kylo Ren.
And a classic K-Sith crossguard. Just has such a nice growl. Love the growl on his.
The Supreme Leader is dead.
K-Sith also arranged his in each episode. So, last one was TFA, this one's The Last Jedi, and the next one is Rise of Skywalker.
Kylo Ren.
They all sound a little different. I did different blade styles on each one, so I believe the very first one I shown was film-based Kylo. This one,
The Supreme Leader is dead.
the Last Jedi one, it is actually Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. So it's supposed to mimic the on-screen version. These side blades, these are pretty tricky to get installed. Pretty darn tricky indeed. So they're made of a TPU material, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with that, it is a flexible filament. You can actually see it squish. Let's see if I can get it on camera for you. But it is very flexible. I can see some big advantages to that. One of the disadvantages I found before making this video was that if it's not a really tight fit, it wants to try to slip out on you. And since the set screw is sinking down into a flexible material, it doesn't really hold it too well. So it's like I was tightening it, and I was still able to pull it out. Well, what the hell? So I decided to put a little electrical tape on it, give it more of a friction fit. Got to kind of play with it a little bit, make sure the tape doesn't gunk up on you whenever you're trying to insert it. And it's nice and tight. And one thing I did notice about this hilt is that you have a threaded hole on this outer shell, and the inner shell is just a through hole. So that doesn't really help matters none neither. But overall, I will say that this is a pretty sweet saber to own. Did the same thing on this side. It's got the shadow foil props NeoPixel PCBs in all three. It's what came with the kit. I heat stain these blade plugs because those came unstained, whereas the Kylons, they were stained, but blade plugs weren't for some reason. I was kind of surprised at that. Got a 1-inch blade, 7/8 side inch blades. Try not to blind anyone, so I wanted to turn it on with the blade plugs in. You may have noticed these little greeblies over here sitting around, an extra wire. These are genius. Just want to give a shout out to whoever thought of these. What these are for is for that, to undo it, in case you ever need to. Smaller one is for that one. I liked these so freaking much, I decided to design my own and send them off to Craft Cloud to 3D print me some in nylon. Absolutely loved them. Use them for my 89 Sabers Kylo. Where's that other? There it is. Now, the person this is going to, Troops quite often, has an awesome Kylo cosplay. So I wanted to make this as user-friendly as possible as far as getting the internals out. So instead of having to undo this wire, guide it down through, and all that mess, I decided to glue it up here, make this the only wire that needs to be removed, and everything else is securely mounted via E6000. Then to access the internals, you remove these 3 screws, and it just slides right out. Have your fully printed nylon chassis, kill switch.
Let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
Easy soundboard
That's the
access.
only way to become what you were meant to be.
Fully enclosed 28mm bass speaker. The one they sent with was a 3-watt 8-ohm, and I was pretty happy to see that. I love using those speakers with proffie. And easy battery removal. So you got your battery tabs in there. I had to bend this tab out just a little bit in order to get a nice friction fit.
Let the past die.
And it's perfect. I'm actually going to go ahead and insert a fully charged battery in, because this is about to go in the mail. One thing I did notice about this particular chassis is that these are all through holes, and this is the only threading. Now, in case anyone's wondering, the switch PCB is down in here. And there actually is a mounting hole for the switch PCB. It takes an M2 screw. And I was actually able to find a bag of old computer parts that had a flathead M2 screw in it. Couldn't believe it. It worked out quite perfectly. Now, since those are both through, or all three of these are through holes, you get kind of a little bit of play in here, going back and forth. So you want to visually see those threads and line them up. And I'm not sure what was going on with the design on this chassis, but so you've seen the whole bulk of it. Well, after that, it's a small, looks like maybe a 12 to 16 millimeter just piece that goes up in there. Well, the only thing that would have held that in would be this screw, and actually these screws would also sink down on it. So while that's not a bad idea, I don't know, it caused some concern for me. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. And actually I could probably just show you. So the setup for this is quite interesting. It's very simplified. Compared to my 89 series version, it's very simple. And this. One thing I did notice about this bottom half, this unscrews. There's not really any good way to clock this in to be perfectly accurate. And I wanted to take these fins off to try to get it accurate, but you'll see there's some adhesive on there. So good luck getting those off if you want to orient that any other way. See, that just works so beautifully. Absolutely perfect. I need to watch this. Unscrewing it. Boom. Oh wow. Switch plunger even stayed in there. How about that? So as you'll see, there's the M2 flat screw. Secured the blue wire down through two means actually. Used super glue to hold it in place, then I've done another layer of E6000 over that to make sure it never moves. I figure if this is going to be used in a lot of trooping, it needs to be as bulletproof as possible. Then you have your wires coming from the side blades down this channel straight into this big old hole. And that is where your Greebly screws here. So I believe this is meant to be the only screw holding it in place permanently, but anybody who's been watching me for a while knows I tend to go the extra step. And yeah, I use a little bit of electrical tape underneath the wires to make sure that the wires don't rub raw after a while. The extra step I took was that main piece that goes into the housing. I just put a bunch of E6000 on it, put it in there, and I added a couple M3 screws as well. Drilled, tapped, done. Yeah, it's not a bad setup. Whenever this came in, this panel was on the back side. So instead of, that was before I knew what these little pieces were for. Instead of just removing that and moving it over, I just undid the two Phillips screws and swapped them, and done deal. Pretty darn easy. I do like the setup on this. It's pretty darn good. Boom, nailed it. I don't know about you, but I think I made that look easy. I don't know who thought this thing up or if it's been around for a long time. I didn't know about it, but they deserve a raise. Freaking genius. That way you don't damage any of your stuff. Whenever I did the wire on this, I made sure to put just enough wire into that wire clip, just enough to where it's not visibly, like, there's no visible gap. That way you can put as much in there as possible, and it should hold it very well. Well, it does hold it, you know. These can be a pain. See what I mean? Not a huge fan of this the 3-screw setup. There we go. But it is a very rock solid design. As you can see, there's not a whole lot going on the inside. It's just very simple, straightforward. You got your panel, you got your mounting hole for the panel. I believe it was kind of underneath where the switches are. Actually, yeah, it is underneath the switch PCB. I did use a little E6000 on that to hold that in place as well. You know, I just didn't want anything to get loose over time on the guy. Spend a lot of money on a Saber, you want to get your money's worth, right? I mean, geez, you've seen the chamber for that. Now look at the chamber on my 89 Sabers version. You can see I have another video of a full breakdown of this hilt, and it is just wow. I was just taking this one apart earlier, and geez Louise. You see that it's like 2 pieces for the chamber gash. This is like this unscrews, this top lip comes off, there's a shroud for this piece. These are all held together, that falls out. These are all held in with screws, that's got shine through. There's so much going on with this compared to that. That's just these 2 pieces. Which, honestly, yeah. Anyways. Well, I think that's all I got to cover on this install. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until the next time, may the Force be with you.